Fire away.
All right, welcome everyone. We had some technical difficulties with Facebook Live, so we're going to do it this way and upload the video through Zoom. So I'm joined today by my good friend Michael from Reset Summer Camps, and we want to talk about how to avoid the summer binge. One of the big issues that happens throughout the year is that during the school year, you have a lot of structure, you maybe have sports, and then when school ends, now you have 2 or 3 months of summer break that is just full of free time. And I saw this reflected in my own life. I was able to keep gaming fairly under control during the school year because I just didn't have a lot of time to be able to game. I had school, I had hockey, and then I had a limited amount of free time. But come summer break, I no longer had school, no longer had hockey, and I had 16 hours a day that I had to fill. And for me, gaming was what I filled it with. So we wanted to get on today, share some strategies with you on how to keep the summer binge from happening, give you some different options, and also talk about some of the common mistakes that occur. But Michael, I know it's late there, so thanks for doing this. You're in San Diego.
I am. It's about 9:30 Wednesday night.
9:30 Wednesday night, and it's Thursday morning for me here in Thailand. The future looks good for you, I can say. And last week or the week before, we were in Chicago together speaking at a conference. And one of the things that was interesting about that conference was that it was for educational consultants, yet the reception to it, I think, was really, really positive. And obviously, these are people who are experiencing a lot of parents coming to them saying, my kid's really struggling. What do we do about it? And you're seeing parents like this every day. So what are some of the concerns that you're seeing when parents come to you?
Well, when parents come to me and talk about their kids on screens, it's never good. It has to do with excessive time, bad language, bad behavior, poor eating and sleeping habits, refusal to go to school, refusal to turn the game off, don't want to let their friends down because they're playing an online game with a group of friends, and if they sign out, then their friends are missing them or they're not part of the team. It's really an interesting and scary situation.
And there was actually an article that came out recently about Fortnite that was sharing that a lot of kids were being bullied at school if they didn't have a cool character. And now in order to get these cool characters, you have to spend a bunch of money. And so it really, in a lot of ways, the whole culture around gaming has completely changed. And the way kids are raised and grow up has completely changed. So for you, growing up, or go ahead.
And I tell you, I talk to parents all the time, and they share with me the shame and the guilt that they feel that they're bad parents. And even when they sign their kid up for our program, their other friends think, what's wrong with your kid? And why are you such a bad parent that you have to seek this kind of intervention? And I'll share with them that they are up against things that our parents never had to deal with. I'm older than you, and I used to play pinball and Pac-Man and Space Invaders. And those game companies hired, graphic designers. They didn't hire people that were experts at brain chemistry or had psychology degrees to design games to be more and more and more addictive, which is sadly the situation that parents today are facing. So there is no roadmap. There is no how to deal with this book because it's never happened before.
Exactly. This is the first generation of parents who actually have to deal with this complete change in the way that kids are interacting with the world these days. And I think it's important for us to just also reflect back on, what was summer like for us growing up. And, although I spent a lot of summers just gaming and completely checked out, I do remember some of those summers where, I was biking around, and I remember we built some ramps near our house where they had dumped some dirt. And, when I look back on my childhood, yeah, the gaming was fun and stimulating and entertaining, but it's actually those memories of biking with my buddy down the street and building these ramps out of some dirt that was dumped for a baseball court. And doing that was what I really look back on with a lot of memory. and nostalgia. So I think we also need to pay attention to the fact that it's not just that kids are on screens. It's that when they're not on, or when they're on screens, they're not developing a lot of the important aspects of themselves as a person, their identity, their social skills, their capacity to be independent, their capacity to be able to entertain themselves. And they're not developing these skills. And so then when you remove the screen, you have this tantrum, you have this explosion, because that person doesn't know how to interact with the real world anymore. And that's
Exactly.
one of the things that I was so impressed with last year when I spoke at the summer camp. And I remember just having a lot of conversations with the kids about, how did they feel? Were they nervous coming or not? And the thing they constantly kept telling me was how, yes, they were nervous, they were unsure, but how much more confident they felt in themselves and how much more independent they felt being able to be out there on their own, be away from their parents, be able to make new friends, be able to do activities, try new things, and just how that shifted how they felt about themselves and their own self-esteem. And I think it's often so much of a focus on the screens and not so much on, are they really developing themselves as a human being, and what kind of impact is that going to have?
Yeah, I mean, some of the most gratifying emails I got from parents after last year's summer camp program was stories about how much fun the kids had at camp, but it wasn't just because it was a fun camp experience. I heard the word judged. Like any parent or teacher hears that word all the time. People are judging me. I don't want to do that because they're going to judge me. I feel judged. And I had several parents tell me that one of the words that the kids used about having a good time at camp was they didn't feel judged. And I think that's because they were all in the same boat. They were all individuals with horrible social skills, lacking maturity that would match their age because they've spent so much time just one-on-one relationship with a screen. So then they come to camp or any social environment and actually speak to other human beings, and in our case, other kids that were from the same type of background and had the same kind of experience. And it was okay. And it was okay to not have great social skills because nobody did. And over the course of the camp experience, they really, the reason we called it reset is because we're really resetting these kids to a proper place in a growth cycle to where they are interacting, they are developing social skills. They're also sleeping a good amount. They're also eating a good amount, which are things that don't happen when you're by yourself, not self-regulating and doing whatever you want, including staying up till 3 a.m. on your screens.
Exactly. And I think one of the most important things to remember is how important it is to give these kids a chance to actually experience life differently and to create a contrast in their life between life with gaming and life without it, because kids start gaming so young now. And we can talk about who's to blame for that or who gave them their device in the first place. And I'm sure a lot of parents watching this feel really guilty about the fact that, they probably began it. But I also know that it's very challenging for someone to just reduce it a bit and continue to live their lifestyle, the same kind of lifestyle, because gaming is so proficient at being an escape, being a place to socially connect, and a place to feel a sense of measurable progress. But giving kids an opportunity to experience life without it then allows them to actually develop a different relationship when it returns, because they no longer feel like it's the all-encompassing thing that they once did. But
Right.
it's really difficult to get to that point when you're still doing the thing. And we see it with our members who we ask to take 90 days off gaming, and they actually see a 2x improvement to their overall well-being, evaluated across 12 different measures of emotional health, physical health, family relationships, focus, time management, and even their appearance. And it then gives them a point in their life, a reference point that is life without gaming compared to life with gaming, where they were meeting like a 3 out of 10 score on quality of life. And so it's a really significant shift. But if we don't give them that opportunity to actually experience it, then they're never going to make that shift on their own. And I think just summer camp or any sort of specific set of time without gaming or technology can be a really great way to do that.
I actually had a parent compare excessive gaming with being in a prison cell. And when she talked about the experience at camp, she said, you know, you don't know the benefit of blue sky and sunshine and fresh air if you never are exposed to it. So if you're always in your room with the windows, you know, the curtains drawn and the door closed and your headphones on, that's your reality and that's your world. So you come to camp or you go outside or you do some other kind of program and there's blue sky and fresh air and there's other humans to talk to who aren't plugged in. So there's that quality of you don't know what you don't know. And then as soon as you do start to, you know, in the camp environment, I call it accepting your fate. You know, one of the reasons we do 4 weeks is that first week is kind of detox because the kids are, you know, up till 3 a.m. and they're really used to gaming a lot and now they're going cold turkey. But after that first week, they kind of accept their fate and they interact with the other kids more and they're sleeping better and they're eating better and they're taking the classes and they're doing the group therapy and we're doing fun summer camp stuff, going to the beach or ropes course. They're actually being kids and discovering that it's okay and it's fun to be kids. And, you know, part of what we teach them is their device is a tool for living. It isn't living. You know, they're substituting, you know, fake life for real life. So we try to give them, you know, we do classes, everything from healthy tech to know your enemy and things like that. So they get an understanding of why tech world works the way it does and what habits they might want to change when they go home.
Exactly. And ultimately, it's one of those things where it's so powerful when they get to actually experience that. So let's talk about some of the common challenges that parents are going to have as summer is coming up. And then we can give some more information on camp as an option. But the biggest challenge that parents are going to have with summer coming up is just a complete shift in routine where now there's a lot of free time that needs to be filled. And for parents, it's not like their schedule has really changed. You know, you're still going to be going to work or
Right.
you're still going to, you know, be living your life. But now you have a kid at home who needs to be entertained all day long. And one of the biggest shifts that happens is going from a structured routine with school and sports to an unstructured routine. And so it's really important that parents, when you have summer break coming up, that you're thinking ahead to how are we going to keep some sense of structure? How are we going to keep them in some sort of routine? Because if they go off into just unlimited free time, well, gaming is how they do their free time. And so
Right.
really thinking about how are you going to create more structure is really important. Another point that I'd like to share, just a practical tip for any parent watching this, is keep gaming from being the first thing they do in a day, especially during the summer. If they wake up and they immediately stop gaming, well, they're going to be gaming all day long, especially because when you go to stop them from gaming, you're dealing with a tantrum or you're dealing with emotional manipulation of some kind. And so that's going to wear you down over the course of a few months of having to do it every day. So instead, keep gaming from being the first thing of the day. Have them go outside, get some sunlight, have them interacting with some friends. And then, okay, maybe a bit of gaming if it's not being a huge problem. And then a break, back outside, back doing other things. It can't be overstated how much of an impact it makes when they are outside and they have no choice but to actually find other things to do. Initially, they might be bored. Initially, they might be upset about it, but that will pass. And then they will start to engage in a different way. And it's that intangible skill that's being developed. So just adding more structure, having a routine, and keep gaming from being the only thing they're doing, especially in the morning, and instead have them have to be outside, playing, doing other things, dealing with boredom in their life. If you follow those two things, that'll help a lot. And a third thing you can consider also is just not allowing gaming to happen every day. So instead, it could be for every day you're off gaming, you earn a day of gaming. So use game-free days as a way to earn game days. And now that's not unlimited gaming for that day that they get it, it's still limited gaming, but they're allowed to game for every day that they don't game. And that just keeps it from being a consistent pattern, a habit, and just an all-encompassing activity that it can be, and that's where a lot of problems are developed.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with the routine thing. I talk to a lot of parents about, what can we do off season or when camp's not in session or when I talk to schools, in the springtime. And we talk about establishing routines just for weekends or school breaks or certainly for summer. And the things we talk about most are get up, make your bed, get dressed, go outside. Because if a child starts their day that way, number one, their bed is made, so it's that much harder to get back in it. Number two, they're dressed, so they're not still in their PJs or their sweats from yesterday. And if they've started the day with go outside, now they're outside. Now they've left the home, left the place where the game is, and then you can take it from there, be it with friends or scheduled activity or a summer school program or whatever it happens to be. But as long as the routine is the same, and that really helps if you remove the tech from the bedroom. That's the very first thing we talk to parents about. Even when I talk to parent groups, like in Chicago, you remember what I said, how many of you in this room sleep with your phone? Mm-hmm. And this is a room full of adults, and every single adult raised their hand because it's our alarm clock. And I'm like, you can go to the grocery store and buy a $10 alarm clock, especially for your kid. You want to make sure your kid is getting good rest because that's when we grow and repair. And then there won't be that hesitation to get out of bed if they've had a good night's sleep.
Exactly. And so I know reset is 4 weeks, and 4 weeks is chosen very intentionally. But a lot of parents, I imagine, feel like my kid being gone for a month, that feels like scary. So what do you say to the parents who are just worried about that being too long?
Well, I tell them about the program in detail. There's a reason we don't do weekend retreats or after school programs, because if a child really needs to detox and come off that constant everyday screen thing, we really need the full 4 weeks. Our clinical director, Dr. Rourke, actually called it the sweet spot because we can't really do it in 2 weeks. 3 weeks you get close. 4 weeks seems to be perfect, and beyond that is kind of just reinforcing what we did in the first 4 weeks. So especially in a residential summer program. And I've had a lot of parents say, if we had a 2-week program, they'd sign their kid up, but since it's 4 weeks, they won't. And that's certainly up to that parent. But we don't produce a program that we don't think will work. So I'd rather not have your child for 2 weeks because I can't affect lasting habit-changing change in that child in just 2 weeks. So exactly. I understand the separation anxiety, but I always say compare it to the anger outbursts, the lack of sleep, the poor nutrition, the falling grades. I mean, balance the cost. And just in time, we're not even talking about money yet, but what do you want for your child? If you want a reset for your child and your child is in a crisis that they could benefit from our camp, then 4 weeks really isn't that long.
Exactly. And I think for parents, it's really important to separate between our own fears and what's best for our kid. Because it could be, I imagine, I'm not a parent, but I imagine, when you first sent your kid to school, there was a similar, how you have to kind of lean into it. It's uncomfortable. I'm sure you have that separation anxiety. It's a big moment in each other's lives. And there is this allowing them to go and to be their own person and to have their own experiences. And I just think as parents, it's really important that we recognize what is our own stuff and what do we maybe need to look at ourselves instead of having, our own fears or our own anxieties then impact what's ultimately best for our kid. And so I know that kids that went to the summer camp last year for 4 weeks or even longer, I know that makes a really big difference. And it's similar to if a gamer comes to me and says, I want to quit gaming for the weekend, I'll say, great, that's good. But if you really want to shift this relationship in your life, it's going to take a month or 2 months or what we recommend is 90 days.
Yeah.
So it's ultimately, what kind of results do you really want?
Well, and for the parents, we are in almost constant contact with the parents. They send emails that we print out and kind of do a mail call every day. The kids can write letters home, and we scan those and email them to the parents. So there's almost daily communication. The kids call home once a week. But we are talking or emailing with the parents, not every day, but almost every day. It depends on the child and the concerns of the parent. We also do a really intensive screening ahead of time. So they've talked to me, they've talked to the clinical director, they've talked to the people that are in the program, and then they met us when they dropped their kid off. So we try to create that family familiarity so there won't be so much separation. And they're also very used to and ready for some bad behavior. Kids write, that first week, the letters home are really terrible. They call their parents names and they claim that they're having, these, medical issues, all in an effort to get mom and dad to rush to camp and pick them up and take them home where their Xbox is. But the parents have lived through this already, so it's not new. And then, if, we have medical people there and we have therapist people there. And so if there are things that need special intervention, we're there and we call the parents first so they know what's going on.
Exactly. And so it's, again, what kind of results do you want? Do you want, a fundamental shift that can take place in their lives, not just from a behavior change standpoint, but also from actually giving them an experience that they'll look back on and see as like a very meaningful time in their life, or do you just want the quick fix? And I think we live in a culture where we want the quick fix all the time, but ultimately the quick fix isn't going to change the fact that this situation has probably been going on for quite some time. Like, gaming didn't just come out of nowhere for the last weekend. It's been happening for years, and that's going to take some real time to be able to shift.
Well, and I tell you, some of the most difficult conversations I have is with the parents about their behaviors, because we provide information and resource during camp for how the parents can affect change in the home environment. So when their child comes home from camp, they are on a good path to success. We do a family workshop weekend at the end of the 4 weeks where the parents are involved for a full weekend with their camper. And then, it's not just change the kid. It's changed the dynamic. It's changed how things are at home. It's get mom and dad off their phone during dinner at the same time we get the kid off his phone. It's not just a kid problem, it's a family dynamic problem. So getting everyone to commit and buy in is sometimes more challenging than just having the kid at camp for 4 weeks.
Exactly. So this requires thinking about it differently. It requires taking different type of action. And I know that we have some good news around the financing of the actual camp. So share a few details on what kind of options are available now.
Oh, yeah. We've had some really great input from a few outside sources that have allowed us to offer tuition assistance to families who can't afford the program or feel they can't afford the program. And then there's a finance company called Prosper Health that does a lot of financing for therapeutic programs. And they've partnered with us to provide financing. You have to fill out an application and qualify and those kind of things. For the tuition assistance, you just have to provide a little bit of financial documentation and a reason why you're asking for this intervention. But a really good example is we have a single mom who originally contacted us and said she couldn't afford to send her kid to camp. And after a couple emails back and forth, she submitted a tuition assistance request and a Prosper financing request. And now I think she paid $500 deposit to send her kid to camp. And between the tuition assistance and the financing, she's paying $85 a month. And I forget how long that's for, but it's not thousands and thousands and thousands of dollar outlay because she couldn't afford that anyway. So for anybody listening, I certainly encourage you to contact me or send an email to the camp about those options. There's also links to both of those options on our apply page. There's a code you can use for Prosper, and then there's a link to download the tuition app. So it's really up to you if you want to apply for those kind of things, but we're trying to create a program that is not out of reach for anybody who sees the value of it and can participate in those options.
And that's awesome, because that's so much of ultimately what this whole movement is about. Is there are families who need help, there are gamers who need help, and ultimately how do we help them? And so just to kind of recap a little bit for families watching or parents watching, avoiding the summer binge is a really important aspect of all of this. Really being able to actually maintain some routine, maintain some schedules, keep gaming from being the first thing they're doing in the day, have a number of other activities set up, whether that's having a camp structure, whether that's Reset or any other type of camp program or activity, group-based activity type program. Keep gaming from being the first thing they're doing of the day. Remove tech from the bedroom, centralize it in the home, and ideally don't have tech be available every day. Have it be a complement to a healthy life instead of the dominant, all-encompassing factor of their life revolves around gaming instead of gaming revolving around their life. Lots of time outside, lots of face-to-face interactions, and face-to-face means they're actually talking to each other, not just staring at a screen on their video games. And lots of just sunlight and fresh air and these sorts of things. Allow them to be bored, because ultimately that's where creativity will come from, and that's where they'll have to start engaging in the world differently. If you are looking for information on Reset, you can go to Reset Summer Camp or Summer Camps.
Singular, resetsummercamp.com.
resetsummercamp.com. If you have any questions about summer or summer break or summer camp or just gaming addiction in general, you can share them in the comments and we'll be in there to answer them. And I really hope that you found this helpful. I hope that the summer goes really well for all of you. And I'm excited to hear how that all happens. So thanks, Michael, for doing this. Thanks for the work that you do. And we'll talk soon.
My pleasure.